Congressional hearing came to an abrupt end yesterday after a Republican colleague misgendered newly elected Delaware Representative Sarah McBride.
I now recognize the representative from Delaware, Mr. McBride.
Thank you, Madam Chair.
As you just heard, Texas Republican Keith Self, the chairman of the House Foreign Affairs Committee, addressed McBride as Mr. McBride hit back by responding, "Thank you, Madam Chair." McBride made history last year by becoming the first openly transgender person elected to Congress. After the exchange, Massachusetts Representative William Keating defended his Democratic colleague.
During the recent subcommittee meeting for the House on European Foreign Affairs, Representative Keith Self and Representative Sarah McBride had a showdown, one that exploded and now going viral all across the internet. And for what reason? As you heard there at the beginning of the video, Representative Self was addressing Representative McBride, and when addressing him, called him Mr. McBride. Now, after calling him Mr. McBride, as you may or may not have paid attention to, Representative McBride then responded back by calling Keith Self Madam Chair. Now, once this exchange happens, it blew up because another one of Representative McBride's Democratic colleagues decided that they were going to jump in and they was going to protect Representative McBride's rights or stand up for Representative McBride as if Keith Self had did something wrong. As a matter of fact, the exchange went far worse than what anybody might have expected. And I'm going to let you check that out here in a second. And then after that, I'm going to show you a little bit more of who Sarah McBride is and what Keith Self had to say after the exchange that has gone viral across social media. So let's check out this clip of Representative Self exchange with Sarah McBride and see what happens when a Democratic colleague jumps in to defend Representative McBride's honor. Check this out.
Also wonderful.
Mr. Chairman, could you repeat your introduction again, please?
Yes, we have set the standard on the floor of the House, and I'm simply.
What is that standard, Mr. Chairman?
Would
you repeat what you just said when you introduced a duly elected representative from the United States of America, please?
I will. The representative from Delaware, Mr. McBride.
Mr. Chairman, you are out of order. Mr. Chairman, have you no decency? I've come to know you a little bit, but this is not decent.
We will continue this.
You will not continue it with me unless you introduce a duly elected representative the right way.
This hearing is adjourned.
So what we have there is rather than compromise, violating the law, Representative Self addressed Representative McBride appropriately. And here's what I mean by that. Number one, let's look at the committee that they share together. The committee that they share, Congressman Keith Self has been named the chairman of the House Foreign Affairs Subcommittee on Europe. And that is the same subcommittee that Sarah McBride is on also. Another thing that we have to pay attention to is that it is now federal law that there are two genders, male and female. So prior to this becoming the law of the land, there was a lot of pushback behind people on what they call misgendering, where you see a 6'2" individual with a mustache and an Adam's apple, and their voice is deeper than mine. And, how is anybody supposed to know that that's a woman in their mind? Nobody can tell that. So you address it as respectfully as possible. Like, hey, sir, how you doing, man? And oh my God, I was misgendered. Well, it's not misgendering, it's what we see. And here's one of the things, and you're going to hear Keith Self talk about it, and I want to get your feelings about it. Just because another person sees themselves as a turtle or as a duck, or if a man sees himself as a woman or vice versa, does that mean that other people have to participate in that delusion? Do you think, yes, other people have to participate in that delusion? Or do you think no? Share it in the comments. I want to know. Do you feel like if a man thinks he's a woman, or a woman thinks they're a man or a turtle or a duck or whatever, should it be yes, we should cater to what they view themselves as and be in that delusion with them, or no, we have a right to, not fall into that delusion and address it as we see fit, respectfully? I would like to get your feedback on that. So now let's get into who Sarah McBride is. If you're enjoying this video, do me a solid, hit that like button. I'll never ask you for a cash app. I'll never ask you for a super chat, but you hitting that like button, that is currency because it helps spread the video around. And if you haven't subscribed to the channel, subscribe. On the Real Politics Podcast, that's what we do. We keep it real about politics. And once you subscribe, hit that notification bell and select all. That way you'll be notified when I upload new videos. So Sarah McBride, as you can see here, let me make sure I enlarge it some. Okay, it's big enough. Sarah McBride was born as Tim McBride. Tim McBride is a biological man who became a woman or a transition or whatever you want to call it, transgendered or in 2012. As a matter of fact, it was a big whoopla. They did all types of write-ups. You got to ask yourself, how in the world did Tim McBride become the poster child for political transgenderism? You know, who knew him? How did they just happen to find out about this person and then push them coincidentally into popularity to becoming a congressperson? And now that we're learning all of these agendas that the Democrat Party is pushing and these woke ideologies, you know, it would not surprise me if we find out that Tim McBride is a plant. Is somebody that was plucked out to represent this woke agenda, because not just did Tim go from Tim to Sarah, Sarah pushed it even further, pushed the boundaries even further than just saying, hey, this is what I think I am. I feel like I'm a woman, so blah, blah, blah. Oh, no. Sarah McBride, or should I say Tim, a.k.a. Sarah McBride, wanted to push the envelope. And so what did Sarah McBride, a.k.a. Tim McBride, do? They came to Congress and wanted to change the game. So Sarah McBride is a man who wants to be in women's bathroom. And Representative out of South Carolina, Nancy Mace, stood up for women, saying that men do not belong in women's spaces and sports. And this is the article. Trans Congresswoman Sarah McBride blasts Republicans for proposal that will block her from using women's bathrooms on Capitol Hill. And yes, you read that right. Tim McBride, a.k.a. Sarah McBride, wanted to be allowed to use the women's bathrooms on Capitol Hill, even though it is the only transgender on Capitol Hill. And you got hundreds, if not thousands of women up there. The entire rules needed to be changed, or they wanted them to be changed for this one person. And that is the sickness, the mind virus that the Democrat Party has right now. And listen, I get it. Everybody needs to be treated fairly. And by no stretch do I believe that somebody as a transgender deserves to be beat up or abused. Look at RuPaul. RuPaul has been around since I was a young man, a preteen, dressing in drag, and even had TV shows. Nobody's been attacking RuPaul and other people like that, or the rock group Twisted Sister. Matter of fact, Prince and all of these other guys used to dress androgynous back in the 70s and in the 80s. So don't give me this crap that is just this attack on transgenders. No, the attack has been on people of common sense, forcing them to go into this woke mind virus ideology where we're supposed to ignore our eyes and walk in the land of delusion with the individual. So this individual, Sarah McBride, a.k.a. Tim McBride, thought it would be appropriate for him to be allowed into the women's bathrooms, even though I don't believe that Sarah has had the complete surgery, if you know what I mean. So let's get into what Keith Self had to say after the exchange, okay? Because he faced ridiculous blowback from the Democrats. And you know, they're always looking for something to hang their racist hats on, where they just want to go off and get people going crazy about something. And so they've decided to hang their hat and die on this hill. The only problem is the laws have changed. And so Mr. Self didn't do anything but stay within the law respectfully. And yes, he addressed Mr. McBride as what he is, a man. And then McBride addressed him as a madam. Now that is what is not a fact. That is the only falsehood that took place in that entire exchange. But let's check out what Keith Self had to say. And this is from his page. Regarding yesterday's hearing, I am a retired Green Beret. I'm not even sure what all the fuss is about. I spent 25 years on active duty defending his right to live his life as he chooses. But I don't have to participate in his fantasies. Let's check out what he has to say.
Why does it matter? What do you say to your Democrat colleague there, the ranking member who starts raising his voice, threatens to walk out of the proceeding because you referred to a man as Mr.? What do you say to those people who say it is disrespectful for you to call a man who thinks he's a woman Mr.?
Well, Michael, I'm a retired Green Beret. I'm not even sure what all the fuss is about. I mean, he is allowed to live his life. In fact, I spent 25 years on active duty defending his right to live his life as he chooses. But I don't have to participate in his fantasy. So I am under no obligation to participate in something that he chooses to portray himself as.
I love his answer, and I agree wholeheartedly. Do you agree? It's like the question that I asked earlier. Just because someone sees themselves as something, do we have to allow ourselves to walk in that delusion with that individual? Is that right? Because it seems like that's what the Democrat Party is trying to force us to do. They want us to act like, no, men don't have an advantage genetically when it comes to athletics. Absolutely not. Or they want us to believe like, no, there's no problem and no risk of somebody just identifying as a woman to walk into the bathroom behind some little girl or behind some woman that they saw because they just got a hard on. Or to feel like they're a woman because they can't compete amongst other men. So they come over into the women's category, dominate, set records that will never be broken by biological women. Is that okay? To allow men to set records that can never be broken by women. Did you see what the weightlifting record was? I mean, that man broke it by like 100 and some odd pounds, at least. Or these track records, where in some of these woke states, these boys are destroying these girls. And it's not fair, taking up scholarships, taking opportunities, and now invading their space. While the Democrat Party, during Trump's speech to the joint sessions, did you see that group of Democrats that were wearing pink supporting women and literally had Sarah McBride, a man, sitting in the middle of their group wearing pink as they are so-called celebrating women? I even saw on The View recently, they had Dylan Mulvaney on celebrating Women's Month or Women's Week. And that's the transgender dude that helped Budweiser lose almost half of its customer base. So things are going crazy out here. So I just wanted to jump in and share that with you and get your feedback. Do you believe Representative Self was right? Or do you believe he was not right? I want to get your feedback on that. And like always, if you've watched this video up to this point, I really do appreciate it. And if you haven't already, hit that like button, like the video, share the video, subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. Again, thank you from the top and bottom of my heart. I'm Brian Maxwell, and I look forward to seeing you at the top. Over and out, y'all.